Hello Port Geeks, my name is Rob Symington and I'm speaking to you here from the Jardim das Virtudes in the centre of Porto, and I've been challenged to talk to you about how to drink port like a pro. So in the next couple of minutes I'll be explaining to you how to serve and how to taste all three main styles of port wine. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is glassware. The port category can be quite intimidating to someone who isn't very familiar with it, especially if you've grown up in a family where maybe port was served at very formal occasions, out of a decanter, passed to the left, different rituals which are part of port's charm but also can be relatively unfriendly to an outsider. So the first thing is glasses. And it's important to say at this stage that you can drink port out of any glass you want. There are no rules. But we have, at School of Port, we have a perspective, which is that the best glass to drink port out of is a white wine glass. And the reason you want a slightly larger glass than the famous old small port glasses is to basically be able to access the aromas of the wine. So the thing about a slightly larger wine glass for drinking port is essentially you want to allow the wine to open. Port wine has been in bottle, so it hasn't been in touch with the oxygen whilst it's been in the bottle. The whole point of a wine glass is to allow the oxygen to interact with the wine, to allow it to express itself. And the larger the glass, the more expression you will get and the more you will enjoy your wine. It's as simple as that. So we've done glassware. The second most important thing about drinking port like a pro is temperature. And this is possibly even more important than whatever glass you choose to drink your port wine out of. And this is because temperature that you should serve your port at varies dependent on the conditions. So if it's a very cold winter's day and everyone's with jumpers, the temperature that you should serve your port at is very different to if you're in Porto in the middle of summer, on the beach, or even in a tropical environment where it's very humid and hot. So we'll get a bit more into this in a second when I serve and fill my glass with the first port style, Ruby Port. So, Ruby Port, let's dive a bit more into what we're talking about with temperature for service of port wine. It can be a bit confusing, but the thing to remember is the phrase fresh to palate, because that means that when you first put the wine in your mouth, it should feel fresh, regardless of the surrounding ambient temperature. And that temperature will vary based on the conditions. So right now, it's early spring in Porto, and I have a Ruby port in my glass. I should be aiming at between 16 and 18 degrees of the wine, so just slightly cooler than room temperature. But don't forget what I just said, that if you're on a really hot day, you might want to cool the wine down a bit more. If it's a really cold day and you're inside around the fire, actually a slightly warmer temperature of the wine is going to be appropriate. So here we are in the sunny evening of Porto, so I've slightly chilled this Ruby down, not too much, just to have that freshness on the palate. Tawny ports. So here I have an aged 20-year-old Tawny port in the glass, and this is where temperature is even more important. In the old days, people drank all port, well certainly Ruby and Tawny style, warm, room temperature. And I must strongly recommend that Tawny port is served chilled. With aged Tawny, we're talking between 12 to 14 degrees Celsius. So keep it in the fridge and then put it on the side for 15-20 minutes to let it warm up a little bit. But really, the beauty of the temperature here is that it just makes the wine slightly fresher and slightly less sweet when you taste it. Another top tip about Tawny port: because the wine is already slowly oxidized through the aging process in oak barrels, it means that once it's open, you can keep that wine in your fridge for up to 3 months and the wine will still be absolutely delicious. So not only does the fridge help make it at the perfect service temperature, but also helps the wine stay good for longer. White port. If you've been paying attention so far in the video, you will be guessing where this is heading. White port is the wine style that you should serve the most chilled, basically at the same temperature as a white wine straight out of the fridge. And this ensures that the freshness, the acidity is balanced with the sweetness of the wine and makes for a delicious serve in the glass. Okay, so now I'm going to talk to you about how to analyze your port wine in the glass. Both look, smell, and taste. So 3 of the 5 main senses. So it's important to stress that port is a very sophisticated and complex wine, but that does not mean we need to be pretentious when we are assessing it. So the first thing is simply color. And you look with your eyes and you tell if the color is concentrated and deep purple and dark, it's a young wine or a Ruby port. If it's more translucent and you can see through it, it's typically an aged port. It's been aged in wood. possibly fading to copper or amber or even green on the rim. So that's the first step. Step 2, analyzing the aroma. So it's very simple. You swirl the wine in the glass, and this is why you want a larger glass to release the aromas. And you have a think about what you can smell. If it's a young, rich ruby port, you're possibly going to be noticing more of the rich fruit aromas, the red fruits, the black fruits. If it's a wood-aged port or a tawny port, you'll be noticing more of the nuts and woody notes. But really, it's about increasing your experience and enjoyment of the wine to pay attention to what you can identify in the smell. Okay, and thirdly, and most importantly, tasting port wine. An important thing to say now is that although port is sweet and has a reputation as a sweet wine, it is also an extremely well balanced wine. And it's balanced between the sweetness, the acidity, and the structure that comes from the tannins. And this is why when you taste a brilliant port wine, you don't just get the experience of the sugars. The reason why your mouth salivates when you taste port is because of that acidity as well. And that's what makes it such a pleasing and often a very refreshing, when served at the right temperature, wine to drink. And one last top tip to all you port geeks who are still paying attention is length. And I'll tell you what I mean about length. So, typically, a low quality wine is one that hits you immediately and then fades away very quickly. A very generous and delicious port wine will have fantastic length. And what that means is that the mouthfeel, while the wine is still in your mouth, is very rounded and generous, and you're identifying lots of different tastes as the wine remains in your mouth. Once you swallow it, length is essentially the word to describe how long, and I still have the taste in my mouth right now, how long you're still experiencing it after you've swallowed the wine. And typically, high quality port wines will linger and linger and linger, essentially enlarging your enjoyment of the glass. I hope you've enjoyed this short video, how to drink port like a pro, straight from the Jardim das Virtudes here in the center of Porto, with the old city walls right behind me. You know you're in Portugal when you're never far from a barking dog or a ringing church bell. Stay tuned for more videos from School of Port.